Okay, guys, so I'm going to go over this review today, R4 review. It's to help us get ready for the R4 quiz. It's going to look a lot like this. So the quiz is going to theme around factoring, of course. So whenever we're factoring, we do always want to make sure that we're looking for a GCF first, the greatest common factor. So if we take a look in A, we have two terms. It's a binomial. So can we think of the largest number that goes into 4x and 16? Now, ignore the x. Just worry about 4 and 16. What's the biggest number that goes into 4 and 16? Evenly, without a decimal. Now, if you're thinking 2, yeah, 2 is a common factor, but it's not the greatest common factor. I always tell people as a hint, look at the smallest number, 4. Well, we know 4 goes into itself, and 4 goes into 16 also. So 4 is our GCF. Now, do not put an X with your GCF. X is not part of your GCF because 16 does not have an X. Now, we put our GCF outside of one set of parentheses, and then we divide each term by our GCF. So here, 4x divided by 4 is x, minus 16 divided by 4 is 4, and that's it. Number 2. All right, so we got two terms here. Look at the 4 and the 6. What's the largest number that multiplies into them without a decimal? That would be 2. And then I look at the A's. I see that both terms have an A. So A will definitely be in my GCF. Notice I put A and A, not A to the second power. Remember, the rule is for exponents, you choose the smallest exponent, which would be the invisible 1 here. So followed by one set of parentheses, and we're going to divide by 2A. Remember, factoring out a GCF is just dividing into smaller parts. So 4A squared divided by 2A. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Then A squared divided by A is A to the, or just A. Minus, and then 6A divided by 2A, the A's cancel because they're identical. So it's really 6 divided by 2 is 3. Moving on. All right, I got 3 terms here. I'm looking at 5, 10, and 25. What's the smallest number here? 5. Does 5 go into 10? Yes. Does 5 go into 25? Yes. So 5 is part of our GCF. Should I have an A in my GCF? The answer would be no. There is no A over here. Should a B be part of my GCF? Yes, it should. Every single one of them has B to the second, B to the second, B to the second. So the smallest would be, obviously, B to the second. Should I have a C in my GCF? Yes, I should. They all have C. C and C and C. So C is also in my GCF. So there's my GCF. 5B squared C. So I follow by one set of parentheses. And now I'm going to divide by 5b squared. Now, if I didn't mention this already, remember when we're dividing, we are, forgot the c's here. We are subtracting the exponents, but dividing the regular numbers. So here, the 5's cancel. The b squareds cancel. And the C. So we're left with A to the third. All right, and then minus 10 divided by 5 is 2. And then an A carries down. B to the second cancels, and C cancels. And then I move on to the third one. 25 divided by 5 is 5. B squareds cancel, and C cancels. So that's done. Okay, factor each of the following by grouping. Remember, we said factoring by grouping is when we have 4 terms. So what we do is we put 2 sets of parentheses. That's essentially the grouping part. And we want to GCF twice. We want to GCF the first group, GCF, stylus is not too good, and GCF the second group. And then go from there. So what's the GCF of the first group? Should be thinking X is common to both. Go with the smallest exponent, and then we're going to divide by X. So 2 carries down. X squared divided by X is X. Then minus X divided by X is 1. All right, anything that divides by itself is 1. Like, we look at it and we're like, okay, it cancels, but don't put a 0, don't leave it blank. Remember, it's 1. What's the GCF of the second group? It's 6. So put a plus 6. Don't leave the blank there, put a plus. And then we're going to divide by 6. So 12x divided by 6 is 2x. And then minus 6 divided by 6 is 1. Okay, so we're not quite done here, but notice the 2 sets of parentheses here and here. They are identical. That means we're doing it correctly. So we're now ready to write our answer. So in one of our answers, just put that 2x minus 1. Only put it once. I know it appears twice, but only put it once. And then your GCFs right here and here, put those together in your other binomial. And that's done. So essentially, it's just GCFing twice. That's all factoring by grouping is. Okay, let's try another one. So we got our 2 groups. Our first group is, what's the GCF in the first group? You should be thinking x to the second. Go with the small, they both have x's. Go with the smallest exponent. And then we're going to divide by x to the second. So x to the third divided by x to the second is x. X to the first. And then minus 4, and the x squareds cancel out here. What's your GCF of the second group? Now, this is a little tricky here. Take a look at right here. And I discussed that when you're back in the lesson when we did factoring by grouping, when your first term is a negative, you must factor out your factor. We call it a negative. So what's your GCF of 2x and 8? It should be 2. So we would call that GCF negative 2. So let's divide by negative 2. So these would cancel. The negatives cancel to become positive x. And then 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. So put minus 4. So take a look here. Just like the last problem, where notice we have 2 matching parentheses. That means we're doing it correctly. So now we are ready to regroup and put our answer down. In the one group goes the matching x minus 4s. And what goes in the other group, as my voice cracks, is right here. Your GCFs get put together. So x to the second minus 2. All right, let's do another factor by grouping. So make our 2 groups. What is your GCF of your first group? Between 6 and 12. That would be 6. Not 2. 2's not big enough. 3's not big enough. It's got to be 6. Always look at your smallest number first and try that. So 6. Should an A go with the 6? Yes, it should actually be a to the second. Both have a's, a to the third and a. Go with the smallest exponent. Now, we got to divide by 6a to the second and divide. So cancel. A to the third divided by a to the second is a. And then minus 12 divided by 6 is 2. And then the a squareds cancel when they're identical. And what about your second group, 20a and 40? So look at the smallest number. Does 20 go into 40? Of course it does. So 20's got to be your GCF. Put a plus sign in front of it. Now we're going to divide by 20. So 20a divided by 20, the 20's cancel, so you have a. And then minus 40 divided by 20 is 2. Notice that right here, they are identical. So we're now ready to go to our answer. A minus 2 and our 6a squared plus 20. Now, I do want to give a heads up on this problem that we actually could have gone back into the original problem and done a GCF first. We actually have a GCF of the original 4 terms, and that would have been 2. But it's not a big deal. You know, usually when we factor by grouping, we go right to the 2 groups. Okay, if you guys, let me just double check, make sure this is the end. I know when I was putting these pages together that some of them cut off. All right, looks like we're good. All right, so you guys should be hopefully studying for the quiz. Practice these on your own, and good luck on the quiz.